Hello everyone, and welcome to NC Family's weekly update. This week we are reporting to you directly from the Legislative Building in downtown Raleigh. And I am joined by NC Family Counsel Jerry Royal and NC Family's legal intern Jaden Grimes, who is just finishing up his second year at Campbell Law School here in Raleigh. How's it going, Jaden?
Going well. Thanks for having me. Going well.
Good. Well, it's great to have you with us. Well, guys, it's been another really busy week here at the General Assembly. One of the top items on the agenda in the legislature has been the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. Now, this legislation is designed to ensure a level playing field in girls and women's interscholastic sports in North Carolina by requiring sports teams to be designated as either male, female, or co-ed based on the student's biological sex. As such, it would prohibit biological males who choose to identify as females from participating on girls' or women's sports teams. Now, this is a very common sense bill. However, there has been some controversy over it during the past week. And it's designed to protect the health and safety of women who are participating in sports and also the integrity of women's sports altogether. Interestingly, among those who testified in favor of the bill this week, in addition to our very own Sharon Sullivan, our government relations associate, were decorated collegiate swimmer Riley Gaines, who was unfairly forced to compete against a biological male in the 2022 NCAA Women's Swimming Championship. We all heard about that. Also, former UNC women's basketball coach Sylvia Hatchell testified in favor of the bill. Ohio Representative Barbara Earhart, who actually was the sponsor of the very first Fairness in Women's Sports Act in her state of Idaho. And also Peyton McNabb, who is a North Carolina high school volleyball player who was severely injured by a ball spiked by a biological male playing on a team opposing her, and has suffered injuries as a result of that. And we want to give a shout out and kudos to our allies at the North Carolina Values Coalition for helping to line up a lot of these really compelling speakers to come and testify in favor of this important legislation. Well, Jerry, the State House and Senate interestingly ran separate bills this week on the Fairness in Women's Sports Act. There was a bill in the Senate that passed a committee on Tuesday and another committee on Wednesday, and then the Senate floor on Thursday. But then in the House, they passed the bill through two committees and the House floor all on the same day. So it's kind of one of those things where there's a will, there's a way. They can act really fast on legislation if they want to. So tell us, Jerry, kind of what your observations were about all that.
Yeah. Now, that has happened with some of the legislation this session, with things moving quickly. I will say in this case, they allowed for very open debate in each of the committees and on the floor. And as John pointed out, a lot of helpful information was presented in the debate. And so the one difference, though, they were very similar bills. The House bill includes collegiate sports in addition to high school and middle school. So with different bills having passed in each chamber, it's going to be interesting to see which bill moves forward, because I'm guessing they're going to choose one of the two to move ahead with as far as the other chamber voting on that bill.
So the House and Senate will have to come together and figure out which bill they're going to pursue. Again, we're hopeful that it'll be the one, or it'll be the one that includes the collegiate sports, or they'll amend the other bill if they decide to move on the other bill and include that in there as well. Jaden, I know you attended at least one of the committee meetings on the bill. Any other observations?
Oh, I was just thoroughly fascinated by the conversation. I thought that, like Jerry alluded to, it was very open, honest debate. And in fact, when on Wednesday, they squeezed in all of the speakers in opposition to the bill, but they weren't even able to squeeze in all the speakers in favor of the bill. So I think it's a very fair, open, honest process related to a very common sense bill.
Very good.
Jaden, that's a very good point to make, because sometimes when you feel like things are being pushed through, opposition is not allowed to speak. And what Jaden's saying is exactly right. The opposite of that had happened. And specifically the one committee where there were a lot of people who had signed up, they ended up not allowing a fair number of people who were speaking in favor of the bill. So it was good that if you were going to make a decision about where to cut things off, that they allowed the opposition to have a full voice.
So very robust, full debate. And we're just really grateful for a very positive outcome and look forward to this bill being ratified by the General Assembly. Of course, we'll see what the governor chooses to do, whether he vetoes it or not. But the bill did pass both chambers by veto-proof majorities, and so that bodes well for the actual ultimate enactment of the legislation. So, Jaden, in addition to the Fairness in Women's Sports Act this week, we have seen hundreds of bills filed in both the House and the Senate in the past couple weeks. Now, the Senate bill filing deadline has passed, and there were hundreds of bills that were filed in the week leading up to that. The House's bill filing deadline is next Tuesday, and we have seen hundreds of bills being filed in the House. You have been, as our legal intern, have been tasked with looking into and researching a number of these important bills and issues to really help us understand, because we do review every bill that's introduced in the legislature to understand what what they're looking at doing. And so tell us a little bit about your experience in doing research and some of the issues that you've been looking into.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I have thoroughly enjoyed this process. I would love to use my legal degree to do government relations as a part of my work. And I've just loved to work on issues that I'm very passionate about. And, I think that it's important for us to be advocating on for families here in North Carolina. I've also enjoyed being able to use my legal skills, kind of statutory interpretation, to just see what different bills would do, and I've also enjoyed just seeing what North Carolina politics is like. Some things that I've been able to look into include opportunity scholarships for homeschool students, which is very important, as well as recently there were renewed attempts to get rid of our heart bomb torts here in North Carolina: alienation of affection and criminal conversation. And so, these bills obviously would impact families here in North Carolina, and it's very important that we're putting our eyes on these bills and, seeing how they would affect families. And I've thoroughly enjoyed being involved in the process of doing that.
Yeah, it's been great for you to be involved and have the interest that you do, Jaden. One of the things that he is getting to see as well, though, is with these hundreds of bills, I don't know what percentage to say, but a large percentage aren't brought up for consideration. But it lets you see the varying viewpoints that are being expressed by legislators through proposed legislation. And it's important for us to follow those. And even though we may think, well, this bill might not ever come up, if we're not keeping up with the process, we might miss something and all of a sudden will appear and we're going, oh, we didn't even know that was being considered. So you've been a big help with that, Jaden.
Well, and it's also important to really look more deeply into these bills, because there are provisions that may be included in a bill intentionally or unintentionally that may be designed to do certain things that even the bill sponsors were unaware of. So we come across that occasionally too. So yeah, it's an important process. Jaden, you've done a great job, and we're just really grateful to have you on the team. So yeah.
Yes, thank you for that, John, and I look forward to joining on full time as of a couple weeks from now. Thank you.
So Jaden's going to be spending his summer with us doing more and more work, so we're grateful for that. Well, finally, Jerry, we talked a good bit about the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, and we're grateful to see the action on that bill this week. Took a lot of attention and time of the General Assembly. There were a couple of bills that did not see any action this week, and we're grateful for that. Actually, one of those deals with sports gambling, one of those deals with marijuana legalization. Of course, we've been talking about these bills for weeks, but we're grateful that we did not see action on those bills. Tell us a little bit about kind of an update.
Yeah, I know, as we've shared before with you, each of those bills have passed in one chamber. So what we're doing now is we're meeting with senators, encouraging them to oppose the sports gambling bill, and then on the House side, encouraging them to oppose the marijuana bill. One of the great things that I'm finding as I'm meeting with people is they are hearing from you, the people back home who they represent. And that's one of the most, really, the most important voice they can hear from. I mean, hopefully we try to be helpful in the process, but when they hear from the people they represent, it makes a tremendous impact. So we want to thank you for what you're doing, and please continue. And I know we have at the bottom of the page the contact information for how you can still encourage them. They all need encouragement to do what's right. and to oppose these harmful bills.
Well, Jerry, thank you. Thanks for your faithful work in the legislature and talking with members of the General Assembly. I do want to reiterate there are links below this video where you can go to the NC Family Action Center and send emails or call your legislators. There are also links to our stories this week about the Fairness in Women's Sports Act and other items of interest. So avail yourself of that information. As always, thank you for your time and attention. We appreciate it. God bless you. God bless your families, and we'll see you next week.